The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects, nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.
Very good morning to one and all. I, Sham Jain, Assistant Professor, DME Management School and Member Research Cell, welcome you to this virtual session of a week-long FDP organized by Research Cell and IQAC DME. For today's session, we have with us Dr. Vibhash Kumar. So, Sir is an Associate Professor at Jindal Global Business School, OP Jindal Global University. In his previous assignments, Dr. Kumar has done leadership roles as Assistant Director of Teaching Learning Center and Post Coordinator of National Resource Center, Ramanujan College. He is also the founding and managing editor of RIJBR, a UGC Care-listed journal, and is also the Associate Editor of Business Analyst, a peer-reviewed journal of SRC. He holds a PhD in Organizational Behavior and Human Resource Management from the Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics. He is interested in researching behavioral and emotional issues faced by employees at the workplace, that is, employee engagement, effective use of organizational resources, and organizational development interventions to augment the well-being of the organizational employees. He has also published several research articles in renowned publishing houses like Emerald, Springer, Sage, InterScience, to name a few. Dr. Kumar reviews the manuscripts for referred journals of the leading publishers and has also been an editor of a special issue on leadership in organizations, contemporary concerns and key developments in the International Journal of Business and Globalization, published in 2020. He has also contributed as an author for the Institute of the Lifelong Learning University of Delhi, EPG Pathshala, sponsored by Ministry of Education, for developing postgraduate teaching material, and the National Mission on Education project sanctioned by the Ministry of Education. Sir has convened numerous FDPs, MDPs, and conferences, and has conducted scores of faculty development programs and workshops on research methodology and academic writing on various research and other various research tools in various prestigious institutions across India. I welcome you once again, sir, on behalf of entire DME fraternity, and thank you for accepting our request at such a short notice. Before we hand over the session to our resource person, I would request Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, sir, Dean DME Media School and Director IQAC, to welcome our guest and address the gathering.
Pleasure that we are starting this morning on a very pertinent issue because when it comes to research, the most important thing is writing a research paper. Obviously, PhD is also first and the foremost thing, but then this is something which is mandatory, but research paper is in a way mandatory even while you are doing research, doing your PhD, and even after you would have done your PhD, because this is a constant thing in the life of any academic person. So whether you are writing papers for research journals, for publication, and also people find it difficult to write papers for international conferences. So whatever requirements are there for publication, for presentation, for writing the papers, that any faculty member, whichever subject he or she is in, has to learn. So this is good that this session has been organized as part of this FDP, which again is a joint venture of IQAC and Research Cell. And if I can tell, because all the teachers are from DLE only, but if I can tell this to the resource person, Dr. Vibhash Kumar, we in DME has set up a system wherein there are so many research centers, so many research cells, and all the teachers are focusing mostly on their research work. We also have this research journals we publish. Each of the three schools, they publish their research journals. And also we are into publication of so many books wherein the faculty members are contributing. So this is a constant thing, the constant endeavor that each of the faculty member in DME takes up. So I believe that this session, and I mean, since a resource person, as I was looking into the profile of you, handy, and they will be using that to do something better, whatever they have been doing till now as far as writing and publication of research paper is concerned. So I'm looking forward to having a very fruitful session. So thank you once again, and thank you, Dr. Vivash Kumar, to accept our request and to be in this session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Professor Saxena. This is indeed a pleasure for me to come, a bit online and delivering this session. And I'm really thankful to DME, Professor Isha, for having me here, and Professor Jan to have welcomed me and provided this, setting up of the tone of this session. So, Professor Saxena, I'm sure we will have a discussion today. I'm looking forward to having a discussion, and I'm looking forward to having more interactions rather than, just talking. But whatever I'm going to talk about today is on the best practices, across the industry, which we generally look forward to. And it comes with my experience of having, reviewed multiple articles which come my way, and what are the things I advise my young scholars and researchers and practitioners to do. So those are the things I'm going to talk about. However, the disclaimer is that the best practices are also individual centric. So how do you take up from here is your journey, or what you are already doing. Nobody is contesting that is wrong or right. Okay, so basically we are in a position to provide the best practices and see what are the common mistakes that, if avoided, we are definitely going to publish and publish well. I was looking into the Scopus database, and it said that India is currently 7th as far as the number of quantity of research papers published on Scopus listed journals is concerned. So I believe that with the kind of research happening across the country, we'll be surely getting to the best positions in the near future. So yeah, I also welcome all my participants to this session, and I'm sure that you are going to have many questions in your mind, and you are also going to share with me the good practices that you also follow while writing, disseminating information and research. So this session is all about giving you a gist of the journey and taking in good points way forward as it should be. So I'll be quickly sharing my screen. Just let me see if I have the rights. Yeah. All right. Is this visible perfectly?
Yes, sir. It's absolutely.
Good. So we're going to talk about, publication without pathos, and that's what we say is good practices. Moving forward, this is the agenda for today. So I'll be talking a little bit about the publication process, publication ethics, reporting guidelines, what are the standard guidelines that needs to be looked into while we are reporting our findings, how and when we should produce evidences in academic writing in order to ward off the problems of misconduct or anything of that sort, and be absolutely authentic with the work that we are doing. And the most important part, which I believe that early academics, freshers, or even seasoned academics, if you are not following this, then you should. That's what we call as research question formulation through gap spotting or through problematization. Okay, some things like which are generally asked, by the young scholars whenever they are into, or anybody who wants to do research or pursue research. They ask me this question: what topic should I go for the research? From where to begin? And we do not have really a short answer to this question, because we end up telling them that it's your interest that matters. It is your quest for thinking and rethinking and researching is that matters, and therefore you should look into the publications that have already been done, and from there maybe you can get a guide as in what you can do or pursue in the next line of thought. So basically, where do we start is also something which we are going to discuss. All right. So as Professor Saxena was, pointing out that in our life, in academic life, each of us, right now we are in that stage wherein we have to publish, right? And even if we don't publish, we have to write, because if you're an academic and you don't write, it's almost the half of the work is not being done. So the important part is that you write, and we all write. So the art of writing here is also that what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm sure these are the things we are all doing. We'll just see how we can do it in a better way. Okay. Also, if I talk about what is currently required, if you look into, each of us have to, write something for our books, as Professor Saxena was also pointing out, that you have 3 research journals, and then you have also books that you constantly publish, and so on and so forth. So it's important that we continuously strive to write. Okay, and then the writing part is there can be different types of writing. Okay, today what we are specifically going to talk about is research writing, academic research writing. There can be different writing otherwise as well. But yeah, one thing which I wanted to clarify, that research writing and any other academic writing are 2 different things. When we talk about research writing, it does not have to be a report. Okay, it's never a report. It's about finding out something new. It's about giving something which is not there already. Okay, and that is something which we all know, but we always forget while we are writing a research article. Okay, I'll repeat. Report writing and academic research writing are 2 different things. Why it is a different thing? Because we have to provide something novel, something which does not exist till date, or something which is a critique of the already existing theories. Okay, and that is something which we miss. And if we are missing that, most probably the articles are bound to be rejected in the best of journals. If we are targeting, we'll never be able to get through with that. So this brings me to that part where I would just like to discuss a little bit about why the articles are desk rejected. Okay, desk rejection. When you're submitting your article to any journal, your article gets rejected, and that rejection is almost at the desk of the editor, or maybe even the preliminary copy editors, or those who are looking at the important aspects of the research work. It gets rejected. Okay, so that is desk rejection. That means it does not go to the peer review at all. So there are a lot of us who talk about, and we say that, come on, we have done a good work. At least they did not give so much of time to our work, and so many other things that we can always hurl on. What is the real reason for maybe desk rejection? And I'm not saying again that it may be it's the exhaustive list what I'm going to talk about. There can be many other reasons as well. So primarily, we are sending out our article to a journal. What we're not looking at is the scope and aim of that particular journal. Okay, and we're just submitting an article in any of the journals which we feel like. So this is also a process. I'll talk about it in a quick while from now, that how you can look into the articles and ascertain if that article, if our article meets the requirements of the journal in terms of aims and scope. This is number 1. Number 2, howsoever good our writing is, maybe we have done a good research gap analysis, we have provided a very good research question or questions, but we still are not able to, or even we have a very good methodology and the results is also there, but what is missing is that we have not written it coherently. Okay, or the writing is wanting. You will see that most of the journals nowadays have started asking and you will see this one line always with this rejection that the article has not been written uh, with proper grammar and in English, and therefore it needs to be copy edited, or you need to get it proofread by one of the native English speakers, and so on and so forth. You'll always get this line. Okay, so do we invest less of our time in making the readers understand what we are writing? These are very small things, right? Very small things, but we seldom give a lot of thought on it before we are sending our article to a journal. So now you see there are a lot of copy editing experts out there. Even journals like Sage and Emerald, Elsevier, all of them have this copy editing services. Of course, you'll have to pay for it. But then it does ensure that whatever you're writing is making sense. Also, it is a good practice. Even if you do not go for copy editing, it's a good practice to send out your article. Once it is finished, you send it out to, say, 2 or 3 good academic friends who will look into your article critically and see if whatever you have written makes sense to them, and if all of them agree on the same line, as in what is the seminal finding of this work, or how it is written, the way it is written. Is it easy to comprehend and understand? Because see, at the end of the day, it has to be a good story which we are telling. If the story is not good, or it does not fit in a picture, you are bound to get rejections. Okay, so it's always like a single story, a narrative which starts with the introduction, ends in the conclusion, and everything is linked with each other. I would just like to make this point more evident and highlight it, that your introduction needs to give the introduction of the entire research that you have done. Okay, and therefore it's the very important part of your paper, because that is how you're. Even before that, there is an abstract, which is again very important, which I'll come to after I talk about introduction. But the introduction section in itself is one thing wherein you talk about what was, that means the historical perspective. What is, that means what is the current state of knowledge in this field, and what will be, or what contributions you have done, or what contributions do you intend to make through this research work. I think if these 3 things are taken up in the introduction, it will complete the introduction. Okay, so mostly what we don't understand is that we can't only give historical perspective of a research topic in our introduction and get away with it. Okay, so you have to talk about why it is necessary to put a research gap. That means the things which have you have done an extensive literature review, and you found that these are the research gaps. Okay, and you have to highlight those research gaps, or you say that these are my research problems, and that has to come up very well in the introduction section. And then from there on, you can always put in your research questions, and those research questions should be linked to your contributions, which you will talk about in the introduction itself. And then the last paragraph of the introduction should be talking about how you are arranging your entire manuscript. So what follows what should be the last paragraph of your introduction. So it has to be all linked together. This is just the introduction part, which I'm just discussing here. I've also seen, through multiple reviews, that the authors don't take the objectives very seriously. So how it is, the common mistakes that they do is, the introduction talks about what was, that means the historical perspective, and then they go to the literature review, LR section. In the LR section, they have everything except what should be there in the objective, or what is there in the objective, or what they want to achieve. So if you're talking about literature review, please don't write almost anything and everything, because again, I want to highlight it, and I want everyone to understand. and I'm sure you're also doing it, that literature review is a humbling experience, because you get to know whatever whatever you think about, it's already there. Okay, from there you deduce your research questions. So it's already a very difficult task. But what are the papers that should be there in the literature review? There are so many, right? So which are the few papers that you would put in your literature review? Okay, so I can understand there are so many. So you have to look into the seminal work in that area. Secondly, it should not be dated. You must have seen, if you get rejections. I also get a lot of rejections and I understand that, and I try to do well in that term. We all get rejections. That this is how the publication process happens. So they write, the literature is dated, and this is a common reviewer line that they use. Literature is dated. What does it mean? It means that the basis on which you have constructed your research question is dated. So you cannot say, citing a research which was done in say 20 or 2001 or 2002, that particular author X and Y published their article in 2001, say that the research on XYZ topic is inadequate, and then I take it from there. So this is basically gap spotting that you're doing, but you are basing your gap spotting on a research which is dated. So there is a problem. Okay, so it needs to be contemporary. Please look into the articles that have been published in the last 4 or 5 years. Better if you're doing for the last 2 to 3 years, because then you are able to understand what is the current state of knowledge in that discipline, and then maybe base your research gaps on that. And there can be different questions, as in there can be seminal work which has been done say 20 years back. So nobody is stopping you if it is derived from a theory. If the theory is there and it has been written 20 years back, and you're following that theory to maybe address a research gap, nobody is stopping you. However, it's important that we base our research from the contemporary text and literature. All right. Also see, again,
So sorry to intervene, sir. Are we there on the slide on academic, which has this word cloud?
Yes.
We are here only.
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about the research publication process. So I'm quickly telling you about it, and then this is a precursor, and then I'll move on to the other parts. Right. So so I was talking about the literature, and this you will see that in the literature review itself, many of the authors don't even write that literature review. They may talk about building conceptual framework or theoretical framework, or maybe they'll talk about theoretical underpinnings. So what should we focus on more? We should focus on what our research question was, and what were the constructs, where the constructs intertwined. That means the relationship between 2 or 3 constructs, maybe that can be discussed in the literature review, rather than just talking about 1 construct or 2 constructs in isolation. We should all work on writing the relationships and what the it's also important here. I'm just whatever I'm remembering, I'm putting it here. Again, the important part is that if we link something to the existing theories, okay, it really makes the work robust, in the sense we don't say that we are. So again, my new authors, new scholars come up and say that, how do we know why we are doing this? How do we know that there is a research problem there? Okay, what are the things that we should look into? So I always say, you have to link it with the existing theories. Okay, so, and we have to link it with the existing literature. Then the second question comes is that, what if there are no literature on this subject? Whatever we are going to take, the questions that we are taking, if there is no literature, then what? So I say it's a even better situation when you have no literature, because that means you are now going towards that area of research that has not been done before, or not been done in a way that you intend to do. So how do we say that it is imbibed in the theory. So those theory which have been, what is theory then? So theory is that it has been tested multiple times by multiple authors, and then now it becomes a theory. So now if people ask you that there is no literature on what we are talking about, then please say that please link it or align it with the existing theories, and then you can take it forward from there. So this is the way we forget that we have to link things. You have to be very respectful to all the existing texts which are there, and then analyze it critically. It should not be the first thing that you critically, you're criticizing the existing theories without really having a discussion about. So therefore, literature review is important, because then you talk about what is the current state, and then you start criticizing, okay, this is where it falls short. And now my research comes in and it will fill the gap. All these things are very, very important, because if we are able to highlight these aspects in our work, more often than not, the article will not be disrejected. Okay, so let's move on. I'll also talk about it when I talk about research gaps and gap spotting and problematization. I'll be talking little bit more on that at a later part. So the next part is I've seen your schedule, and it says that you will talk about ethical aspects of publishing. So I'll not get into the detail of it, but still I'll talk about where we go wrong as in, and quickly talk a little bit about publication ethics. All right. And yeah, so now you see, I was talking about this, we can leave it out, but there is a pressure. We all must understand there is a pressure for all of us to publish in good journals, and because of multiple reasons. I'll tell you a very short anecdote. The researches which were done in India, say 10 years early, before that, you will see that there was nothing called a UGC care list. There was no direction on plagiarism. There was no direction on academic honesty, nothing of that sort. Okay, so UGC came up with all of that in the last 5-6 years. It came up because there were a lot of complaints about predatory journals, about unethical practices in the academic writing. You will also see a lot of retractions also happening in the articles, in the journals that have already. So we should all understand that ethics is very important here, because once you get your article published, we feel that it's fine, it's okay, we have done it. But please understand, you can be challenged at a later date, and you have to give answers to questions. I've seen some of the very reputed, scholars also getting into this trap, and their articles get retracted, which is that means the journal will write a note. The editor will write a note that because of this academic misconduct, maybe reporting, maybe data, maybe anything of that sort, it has not been done well, and therefore we are retracting this article from the journal. The article will still remain, but with this note. So it doesn't make a very good happy state for any academic. So it's important that we know what we are doing. So let me discuss it through the publication process, each of them, what should be done. So starting with, I've been told that we have researchers from management and journalism and law who are attending this session. So particularly what we have to understand is we will always, more so in management rather than any other discipline, we go to our research, we go to participants, right, for getting our surveys filled, or for observations, or for experiments, or anything, lab experiments, or even field experiments. So what are the caveats which should be followed? So I would want each one of you to go to this website, which is COPE, Committee on Publication Ethics website. Please look into the aspects, different aspects, and try to see that whatever work you're doing is through the guidelines that has been provided there. Okay, so that is internationally laid specific guidelines, And for those who are into psychology and medical professional, medical researchers, they have to adhere to rather more stringent guidelines. Okay, so what we should understand is that we have to. You will see when you are submitting your article to any of the journals, they ask you this question. Have you taken informed consent from your participants? So what is this informed consent? That means if you are asking your participants to participate in your survey or your experiment or your research, they should completely know about it. Number one, they should say yes to it, and then they become part of it. Number three, if they want to leave midway, they can do so, and you have to provide them all the requisite facilities so that they can leave your research experiment at any time they want to. Okay, so this is what informed consent is all about. Now, there can be some research where if you tell the participants that you're being observed or something of that sort, then your research may get biased. Okay, the findings may get biased because if that is how the protocol is. In such situations, you have to first go to the ethics committee of every institution. Every institution should have an ethics research board or ethics committee. If not, that has to be mandatorily formed in institutions in universities, and all the research which is about taking inputs from the participants, it should be routed through that research committee. So the protocol should come from protocol should be maybe stamped and come from the ethics committee. This is something which is important. So I was saying, if you're not able to tell your participants that you are being looked into or observed, this again draws ethical issues. So in that case, the guidelines say that after your research is done, after your observation is done, you debrief them about the research, because if you could have done it earlier, then maybe the respondents could have been biased. They may have acted out differently. Okay, so you have to tell them later on, debrief, and then also seek permission. Okay, if not, if they don't give the permission, you have to delete the data, and it should be like that. Also, there has to be anonymity and confidentiality of the participants and other things. So maybe in the next session you will be understanding and talking about it. So I'll not go into it in a more deep way. The second part is the data analysis. Now, I'll tell you quickly why ethics is important here. So we do our analysis based on any methodology which is already existing, or we devise one. So if something is already existing and we are taking guidelines from that, please mention that, okay, from this, this is a methodological detail which I'm following. And if somebody else wants to do it, we'll also be able to do well. Okay. Also tell if you're doing any secondary research, secondary sources there, please mention the source from which the data has been generated. Provide the exact source, provide the exact methodology. Now, why you have to provide it exactly, and why I'm saying you have to do it, because the whole purpose here is that if somebody wants to replicate the exact design, research design, is able to do it. Okay, and then the only guiding light will be your research there. So you have to be absolutely clear on what you're doing, what methodologies you're following, what methods you're following, and if you have to cite some of the researchers whose methodology or design you're using, please do that. Okay, it's also important that, again, one important part, our researchers, the new scholars, always ask me this question, that what should we write in the limitations section of the article. So it's important that you disclose any biases in the limitation section, any bias that you have come across. Say, for example, you have done a cross-sectional study. Okay, now what is cross-sectional study? Data generated at one time by multiple participants, right? So you have a survey is a good example of a cross-sectional data that is generated. Now, why I'm saying it's a limitation, it was not a limitation earlier on. Say 10 years before, it was not a limitation. Now it is. you'll see best of the journals are asking you to have different samples. Okay, so that you are able to provide incremental validity to the work that you're doing. Okay, and it is having validity externally as well. That means others can replicate the work. So it will be given more credence, or credibility increases when you do it on different samples. So if you just take one sample at one given time, it's cross-sectional study, and it's not able to generalize. You will see that most of the researchers will write that it's a cross-sectional study, and therefore the results cannot be generalized. All right, so it's important that we provide that information in the limitation section. Okay, and it's always like that when you're doing cross-sectional or survey-based researches, you don't use the word impact. Okay, because you're not able to understand the cause and effect relationship. Mostly what we are able to deduce is the correlation. Okay, so this is again a mistake which we do. If we are using surveys, we can just say that, okay, we want to see the association of two constructs or two things, but you can't say that X is leading to Y or X is impacting Y, because the cause and effect is something which comes from an experiment. Okay, when you are manipulating the independent variable also. Okay, that means if I have to put it this way, if you're able to manipulate your independent variable, if you're able to manipulate how your respondents answer to a question in different situations, that is when you're manipulating. Okay, and that does not happen in case of a survey. Okay, so and therefore we say that cross-sectional or survey-based researches have this bias, and therefore it needs to be disclosed, and we should be very much wary about it. We should be aware about it, that we understand that we don't write cause and effect or impact word. We don't use, we just say association. So this is something which is very important. So also now the other part of it is you preserve your data. Okay, it's important. Also, if possible, have it uploaded somewhere with a DOI, digital object identifier. Now, some websites like Zenodo, Zenodo, these websites, you can easily, for free of cost, have your data there. If you have even collected primary data, you can have it there and generate a DOI number for it. You will see when you are submitting your articles to the best of the journals, they are now asking you if you are able to produce the data which you have used for the research. Okay, so it's important. We can also provide the data through the supplementary files that they provide. So you can do that, or you can put it on a DOI. But the crux of the matter is that we preserve the data and we do not leave it up. Why they're asking for the data? Maybe because of the fraudulent practices that are happening today. Some of the authors are doing it, indulging in it, and therefore they in select cases, maybe sampling method can be used, and they can just pinpoint or pick up some of the articles and then look into if the data is if it's analyzed by through the ways which is mentioned in the methodology section, if we get the same results or not. So all of these we need to be wary about. We need to be aware about. Okay, this is a reporting guideline checklist. What should be there. Say, for example, for observational studies, you can use STRO guidelines. For systematic reviews and meta-analysis, you can use PRISMA. So I'll just show you PRISMA guidelines, and please let me know if you're able to see my screen. Is the screen visible? This equator network, can you see this?
We can see the PPT, not the other side.
Not this. Okay, let me share it again then. No?
Yes.
Perfect. So you see, this is the 2020 checklist for PRISMA. When you're doing a review, see what should be there, what should be the title, an abstract, what should be the rationale as provided in the introduction, and the methods. All of that is provided in the PRISMA guidelines. So it's best that we look for the checklists and do our reviews accordingly. I mean, if you're doing a bibliometric or a systematic review based design thing, maybe you can look into how you're going to. So what was the collection method, and what was the inclusion criteria, what was the exclusion criteria, and so on and so forth. This is one of them, right? This is Prisma, and you can also see it for all others. There are many. Say, for example, Prisma P is also there. I think it will be downloaded. I can show you later, but for observational studies, your stroke, this is mostly for, health researchers, but I'm sure if you look into it, even we can use it for our own researches, because we also do systematic review and meta-analysis and everything. So it's important that we follow the guidelines. Okay. It's just that it gives more teeth to the work that we are doing, because we say that we have followed the Prisma guidelines. And if you see what are the things like eligibility criteria, specify the inclusion exclusion criteria for the review, which studies have I taken, which studies have I excluded, and why I have excluded, and how the stages in each of the stage, which studies I took, which I did not, all of that needs to be mentioned in the eligibility criteria. And then providing the sources like databases, Scopus database it is, or Web of Science database, all these things need to be mentioned. So if you can see this PPT screen is visible, PPT is visible, right? So I have some hyperlinks here, which I can also share with you guys later. So you can always check this, and basis what type of study you are doing, you can always look into the guidelines clearly, right? Do I have any questions from the participants up till now? I can take it. Otherwise, I'll go on. Up till now, if I have any questions.
Nothing I can see in the chat box right now. I think if anybody has any question, they can raise their hand. Otherwise, we'll continue. I think we can continue, sir.
Great. Okay. Now I wanted to talk about how do you, select a journal for your article. So which journal should I absolutely look into? How should the process be? So I'll again tell you the mistakes that we do. The first mistake is that we write the article first, and then after it's done, we then start looking for what should be the journal in which I'm going to submit my article. However, this is not the process that we should follow. So right from the very beginning, right from the time you're experimenting or you're designing your research or you're collecting your data, you should be mindful that who are my audience in this? I'm doing this research for whom? Who will read my article? And it's better that we decide on the journal beforehand. All right, number one. So how do we do that? We have to understand there are two things here: high impact factor journal and then low impact factor journals. Which one is right home for my work? Nobody can tell you this. You'll have to look into yourself and see that, okay, now what is high impact factor? So what is impact factor in that sense? I'll just quickly mention about it and then we move forward, because nowadays the two guidelines that we get, one is the site score and the other one is the impact factor. So site score is given by Elsevier, and impact factor is earlier by Thomson Reuters, and now it is given by Clarivate. So it decides on, it gives you an outline of how the journals are performing. Okay, and how do we know the journal performance? Through the citations that they can guard. So the citation you will look into, there is a formula for the calculation of the impact factor as well as for the site score. Say for the impact factor, I think you have to look into the citations which have been done this year, and then for the past 2 years, the number of publications that have happened in that particular journal. You have to divide it by that, and you get the impact factor. So any impact factor, greater than 2 or 3, maybe even more than 1, is considered to be good. Site score is more about going back and looking after for 4 years. I think the new site score, which the formula for that is, it includes last 4 years of the publication data. if I'm not wrong there, because it keeps on changing. Earlier it was 3 years that they used to look in. So so I tell you, whenever you're sending your article to high impact factor journals, please be mindful that if the impact factor is a 7 or 8 or 9, that means at least average number of their publications are garnering that much of citation, 7 or 8 or 9. That's very good in that part. So so you will see, how do you decide on where to send? So if you feel that you have comprehensively taken up an issue and you have questioned the existing theories or assumptions, and you have done a seminal work, if your research methodology is not just robust, it also draws in multiple samples, wherein you can have say multiple studies. Say study 1 talks about the qualitative part, study 2 talks about the quantitative part, study 3 talks about, say, maybe taking more samples and doing an incremental validity study, then I would suggest you can go for the high impact factor journals, because this is what they're looking for. So it's nothing less than a thesis. If you look into one of the articles that have been, say, published in Journal of Management or Journal of Organizational Behavior, Journal of I think Leadership Quarterly, and so on and so forth, in the field of management, of course, I'm talking about. So you'll see that these journals are high impact factor journals. Low impact factor journals, nothing to say about the quality. They are also improving. You will see every journal is doing well these days because of the kind of, I would say, interest in research of the people, and the number of increase in the submissions of the articles. So that has improved considerably. And you will also see that low impact is nothing right now. Every journal is striving to the best, and they're doing it. So depending on your research, you understand that. And second is investigate. So you're short into the process of success. If you look into your article is not getting desk rejected, you always see that. Please see the articles that have already been published in that particular journal. Okay, and if it is somewhere related to your study, please cite that. And it's nothing unethical, because you see that every journal today wants to have more and more citations. They always it's not clearly mentioned. Some of the journals clearly mention that, but it is a implied guideline that we look into the articles that have already been published in that particular journal, and you are citing them if it is close to your study, because they will know that, okay, you have done considerable work before submitting that article to a journal. So it's not a hush-hush kind of a thing that you do it immediately and you get away with it. If you want it to succeed in one particular journal, then you do all the you take all these precautions. Also, it's good that we study the editorial of such journals, the current editorials. Okay, why I'm saying this? Because the editors in those editorials specify what they are looking for. Okay, in terms of methodological rigor, or in terms of the topics that are being studied currently. So all these editorials will tell you about it, that what are the editors or journals are really looking for it. Okay, so I'll just show you, if you can see my screen. Is the screen visible, the new tab? Okay, fine. So say, for example, I go to Journal of Business Research. This is a A category journal. That means ABDC. In ABDC is A. If you do not know about ABDC, I'll quickly tell you. It's a indexing. ABDC is Australian Business Deans Council. It gives the rankings of the journal for all those who are in the management discipline. You get this. You can see the journal ratings are C, D, A, and A star. Mostly these are the 4 categories that we look into. So I was talking about Journal of Business Research. The first thing which every author should do is, so if you have selected this is the journal which you're looking at, please read this, the scope of the journal, what they're looking for, you see. And in the cover letter which you write to the journal, we some of us don't understand that the one thing that the editors looks very carefully is the cover letter. In the cover letter, do not write about some things which have already been written in the abstract or in the introduction. Don't write that. Write how it is related to the existing researches that are done in that particular journal. So how do you know that? Maybe you can see what they are looking for. So it examines wide variety of business decisions, and maybe you can quote some of them. And it's very important here, this part. So anything which is not related to this are sure candidates for rejection. So this is something which we need to look into carefully. The second part is obviously you can see the impact factor. They provide impact factor of journal is 10.969, ranking in 17 out of 154 in business is provided there. You can look into. While you're submitting your article, we don't look into the guidelines carefully. So it's not just about the papers, it's also about this part, submission checklists. All of them need to be addressed. So give your time to this. You will see, you will not regret it, because some of the journals, they have no guideline as such. You say there is no guideline and you can submit it. So submission is free that way. But mostly, even if they're not saying about this, that there should be some submission checklist, there should be some of the important aspect that should be there. It's a common thing and it should be there. Say, for example, the introduction. IMRAT format is mostly followed. So I is in introduction, M is method and material, R is results, and D is discussion. Discussion is followed by obviously the conclusions and implications for research. So all these things. Secondly, you should look into carefully that how the what is the referencing style. Okay, so we don't generally again take it very seriously, but it's very important. Also, the third thing, use a reference management tool, which I think there will be a session on that as well. You can use Mendeley, you can use Zotero or any other, because it helps you. I'll tell you how it helps in a quick one line. Maybe the journal that you're targeting will not accept your article in the first go. So this journal maybe looks for an APA referencing, American Psychological Association referencing. Maybe the other journal where you're submitting is looking for a Chicago manual or a Harvard style. In that case, it takes your complete 1 day to change the entire styles if you're doing it manually. So please use a management software, reference management software. It's very important. Okay, so these are some of the checklists that needs to be looked into. Okay, commonly most of the editors say that those are the articles are rejected first, even before they come to us. Is that when they don't write it well, that means that there is issue of grammar and awkward sentences. And secondly, when it does not meet the guidelines of the journal. So if a journal is asking for a 7,000 or 8,000 word, please adhere to that. If you're saying, if you're putting a 6,000 or a 5,000 or 4,000, it gets rejected. They'll write very good line that we understand that it must take a lot of hard work for you to do this research, but we will not be able to take it forward with our review. And they will write all those fancy things, but they understand here. And you should also understand that what they're asking for, please give them that. Don't deviate much. So if 8,000 the word limit, don't go for 11,000 or 12,000 kind of a thing. It's important that way that we understand it. Okay, so so that the second is so mostly that. So editorials, please look into editorials. Please look into the articles that have already been published. Cite them in your article, and these are important parts. Regarding authorship, again, this is very important. And a quick thought on that. Who are going to be your authors, and what should be the sequence of it? And this is something which is there in the COPE guidelines also, and one of the contentious issues. So from the very beginning, everyone should understand who is the first author, second author, third author, corresponding author, and how do you decide that? How do you decide that? On the basis of the contributions. Now you will see multiple journals are asking for what is your contribution. Okay, in the cover letter, or maybe even in the title. what is the contribution of each of the authors? What are the contributions? So you have to tell them specifically that, okay, author 1 did this, author 2 did this, 3 did, and 4. Now there is a fine line again of difference between an author and a candidate for an acknowledgement only. So who is an author? An author is somebody who is working on that research, is say maybe contributing in terms of uh, analyzing the results, writing the discussion, or putting in through the theoretical underpinnings. Okay, who is not an author? Somebody who is helping you in collecting the data, somebody who is helping you in coding. They are not the authors. They are only candidate for acknowledgement. So you can do it that way, and everything should be decided from the very beginning. You cannot, you should not add authors at a later date, or you should not delete author names at a later date. Okay, now those of you who do not know well about the peer review process, I'm just going to tell you how it goes about. So once you submit your article, and I'm sure if you know about the process, you will understand that there can be what are the things that we go wrong in and what we should do. So number one, once your article is submitted in a journal, it first goes in for a plagiarism test. Okay, similarity test, which we call it. Mostly Authenticate will be the software that will be used for it. That is a variant of, again, Turnitin. Okay, so it should be less than 10% mostly. However, the person concerned will look into, and it's not a hard and fast rule to be at 10%, because there can be other issues as well. But 10% is something, if you are testing it beforehand, please be mindful that the similarity should be less than 10%. Number one. Number two, what they look into is, again, if you're meeting all the requirements of the journal, instructions for authors, writing style, from writing style to number of words to the kind of references or citations that you have used. Second level. Third level, it then goes to the associate editor or the handling editor. The editor will look into, number one, the first thing which they look into is whether it is under the scope of the journal or not. If not, reject. If yes, then they look into if the article has something which is giving you a new finding or is seminal discovery or something of that sort. And the most important thing that they will look into is it citable? So if it is published in our journal, will people cite this article? This is primary, which comes into their mind while they're looking into. Okay. Also, if they are rejecting it on desk, it means that they feel that the reviewers will also reject it. Okay. So they will only let an article go to a review stage, because the kind of submissions that are happening today is phenomenal. So they will only let those articles go to the review stage which they feel can be publishable after revisions and reviews. Okay, so you have to be very, very on your toes while you're submitting your article, because that is how it is looked into carefully. So if the editor feels that it can go to that step, then they will assign 2 reviewers. Mostly this is how it is done. 2 reviewers. They are blind reviewers, in the sense that nobody will know who the reviewer is, and the authors will also not know. Author name will also not be known to the reviewers. Therefore, they ask you to submit a blind manuscript. All right, but some of the journals also go in for not blind reviews. So that is also a part now. It is happening because of issues of where there are biases in the review process and so on. So this is how the process happens. Okay, and then when it goes to the reviewers, they will provide their decisions, and then you'll have to maybe revise it, or if it's rejected, it's rejected. So even if I'll definitely tell all of you here that if your article reaches the review stage, that means you can see it's under review, then you should be happy about it, that you have done those preliminary things well. Okay, and then the issues can be about further robustness or the findings, and if you can fine tune it at a later stage, well, we are looking forward to a good publication. So Yeah, I've talked about it, review process. Now, what is the role of the reviewer? I'm just quickly telling you this because it's important. And you should also know what should be expected from a reviewer. I tell you, once your article gets published, you will also become a reviewer, because they seek reviews from authors who have published their article. So it's important that we know. Here, I'll also like to discuss one of the issues that again many of us ask, and we get impatient. Please do not submit the same article in 2 different or 3 different journals at the same time. It's completely unethical, and it has its own, pitfalls, because it may happen that your article may reach the same reviewers, okay, and then you may, because the reviewers are the same, everywhere. There are very few, I'll tell you, who are willing to do reviews, because it's not paid job, and it's just done for the sake of getting it done. I'm sure most of the journals do not pay for it. Even the best of the journals don't pay for it. So there will be few experts in those fields, and article may reach to them. So if you are traced that way, then there can be issues. Now, what is the role of reviewer here? Non-biased information, provide that to the authors. And I've seen, some of the reviewers are exceptional in the sense that they provide constructive feedbacks to the authors, which can really make the article stand out. Okay. So again, one thing which is very important for all of us to understand, we'll become reviewers one day. So what we should do, instead of just writing, fancy lines, which can be replicated by every reviewer, it's important that you say that what you should do. Say, for example, I'm quoting, if you're doing some survey-based researches, okay, wherein you are getting your data filled from multiple organizations, there can be issues of common method bias, okay, and this common method bias is common to mostly the fields which are, say, management or commerce or any other discipline that uses survey. So if the authors have not used it, you can provide them with specific guidelines as in what they can do about it. Say that you have not tested common method bias, test it. Okay. Obviously, methodological aspects of it can be taken out, because there are ways in which you can minimize common method bias. If somebody is not from the field, you will not understand it well. But I'm just mentioning that please be direct and specify what should be done. Say, for example, what should be there in the conclusion section. Okay. If it is not direct, the authors will always find it very hard to get back to the revisions. Okay, so it's that way important. Okay, text recycling, self-plagiarism, again one major point where the articles are rejected. That means every author does his own work, gets it published, but it does not mean that you're going to use the same thing for another publication. Okay, so people feel that it's my own work, so I can, use the same work again and again. You should not do it. You should never do it for introduction or literature. Never. Maybe you can use it for methodology by citing yourself, citing your previous work there. Okay, so you cannot write the same theories, same introduction, same literature. No, it cannot be. Even if it is your work, it not just draws in plagiarism issues, it also draws in copyright issues, because your article has been published before in a journal, in a different journal, and now if you're using the same material again in a different journal, there can be issues of copyright, not just plagiarism. So it does go into that. About redundant publication, I'll tell you, it means you're doing the work again. In terms of data, I would put in, like, say, for example, you've collected data for 500 people, sample is 500. Now you collect another 25. Okay, you have already published with n is equal to 500. Now you collect another set of 25 samples. Now your sample becomes n is equal to 525. You got your data, you got your article published with n is equal to 500. It's done and dusted. Now you bring the same, it just add, data augmentation or aggregation, you did 25 points. You will see that the parameters, the population parameter, the sample parameter, that means the mean, the standard deviation, all of that will differ now. Why? Because you've just added the data points. But does it mean that you're doing it for a new research data? No. So please don't do it. Aggregation, augmentation, these are all redundant. Similarly, disaggregation. Remove, say, 75 data points from that 500. It becomes 425. Again, your sample parameter changes. So does it mean that you're doing a new research? No. Okay. So also, you will see that nowadays the editors talk about salami slicing. Now, slicing means you're using your data for multiple researches, multiple research papers are produced. Is it completely wrong? I don't say it completely wrong if you are producing different new work, seminal work from each of the data which is categorized or clustered. The only thing which you should provide to the readers and the editor is to be truthful. So you have to write it in the cover letter that this data has been, or this study is a part of a larger study. Okay. And it should be there in the cover letter. This is a part of a larger study, and please mention or cite that larger study and say that, okay, now I have used this data for this study and this meets this specific purpose. That's all. And when your article is getting published, also ask the editor to provide that as a note, maybe after the biographical note on the authors. So that reduces the issue. Again, the same thing about data reanalysis. That means you're using a different methodology to find out something new from the old existing data set. Okay, you can do it, but then be very truthful about what you are doing. I'll not talk about plagiarism much because I think we all know, but let me just tell you about it, how you can really work on it, what should be done. So what is this plagiarism? It means, taking the excerpts which are already published in your own work. Okay. Since I'm talking about publication and writing, this is very important. Most of the authors, what they do is they copy the information from a publication and put it in their own text, and believing that they will be able to paraphrase it later. Okay, this is the process that they follow. Then what happens that you are able to paraphrase it. Paraphrasing means writing it in your own words. You're able to do it, but at the end of the day, it still shows similarity. So what is the right way to paraphrase? If I talk about it, so the right way to paraphrase is you read the article, you completely close it, and then write it in your own words rather than copying it. Even if you read the whole, paper and you're writing 5 or 6 lines on your own, that is enough. I can definitely tell you, because you will be only looking into some of the articles carefully and paraphrasing them. So this is the process rather than copying and pasting and then trying to paraphrase it. So the right way of paraphrasing it is when you are completely closing down the original information and then writing it on your own. Also, do not forget to cite the authors who are responsible for that work. In fact, I can tell you that if you have seen a video on YouTube and you got an idea from there, the best thing is to even cite them with the video link. Okay, because that work is not your work. So it's important that we always cite. So this is how we can ward off, problems of plagiarism. The second part is obviously quotation. Quoting means exact verbatim information which needs to be cited. That means word by word, line by line. That is something you want to have. And if you dilute that information, that can be giving a different picture or different meaning to the work. So in that case, quotation is important. So how much of the quotation can you put in? So the common guideline is the total amount of quotation should not exceed 10% of the entire text, right? It should not go beyond that. So with quotation in APA format, American Psychological Association format. We also provide the page numbers. Okay. So when you have a session on this reference management on Mendeley, you can see how the quotations are done and how attribution is done with the page number citation. Okay, all these things are important to avoid plagiarism, because when you are testing it on iThenticate or Turnitin, it has an option of clicking on the filters, and this filter says that please exclude bibliography, please exclude quotation. Okay, so if you're using quotations which can provide exact description of something, do that, but do it in a way which is prescribed in that particular style. Okay, I think quotations we can leave. Paraphrasing is done. So whenever you are in doubt, please cite. Okay, so always understand that I've seen, I didn't tell you, I was doing one of the reviews and I got multiple assertions that this is how it should be, this should be done, this will happen, and this can be reduced, and so on and so forth. In the introduction itself, you can't write assertions in the introduction. Assertions are to be written in the discussion, the findings, and the conclusion, and the implication section. And it comes through your research, from your research, whatever you have done. It should not be in the introduction in the very first place that this should be done and this is how it is. If you are asserting something, cite. That means assert only something which can be cited. That means is there in the domain already. And if you are saying something, if you are providing some assertions, then please put it in the discussion or findings section rather than the introduction section. Please be very mindful about doing it. Or what you can do, if you are asserting something, then it better be like a proposition, that you're proposing to carry out that thing in your own work, in your own research. Okay. And then otherwise, common knowledge or not, if you're in doubt, please cite. Cite means attribute the author, original author. Even I can tell you, if any idea comes from a discussion with friends, and one of your friends have told you about it and you want to take it forward in research, it's better to cite. Okay, because maybe the friend can come up at a later date and say, well, it was my idea which you have taken and you have taken it further. So it's better you cite, because what we are trying to tell you here is that something which is not your own, please don't own it up. Don't own. You have to cite it. That's how it is. So reference management is obviously there. Now I come to the last part of my work, this session, and then maybe you can have questions. And this is a very important part. In this, I'll tell you 2-3 things which are important. But before I start research with research questions, if I can have some questions of whatever I have talked about, I'll be happy to take up questions.
So I have a question. Like you mentioned about the word limit, because this is one area which we really face challenge about. So specifically with the review articles, although some of the journals say that there is no word limit for the review articles, but even when it is, because now we need to have multiple references. So most of the space is taken, most of the word limit is exhausted in the references only, which is nearly like 2000. So how can we put this to the reviewers and the editors that this much is consumed by the references? So
yeah, I'll take it forward. So I'll answer it in 2 ways. Number one, some of the journals have the policy of excluding references from the word limit. So you look into that carefully. Okay, if it is that way. If they're including the references, please do not give more than 50 references, not more than 50. That should be your aim, 50. Now, how do you pinpoint on those 50 is through the inclusion exclusion criteria. Okay, even if you're doing a systematic literature review or anything. So this inclusion criteria will tell you that maybe there are a lot of researches that have been done, but you're only taking, say, Scopus data. Okay, or maybe only you are taking those articles that have been cited more than 10 times. So this is your scientifically inclusion criteria clearly mentioned. Okay, that way you will be able to reduce the number of references. But please be mindful that in such cases, if you are talking about a theme which emerges from a literature which has say, less than 10 citations, then you can have common you know outliers which you can also mention in the inclusion criteria, that you have taken in some of the articles which completely adhere to what you wanted to work on. So that way I think mostly the problems are solved. Okay, so about the word limit, some of the scholars again say that it cannot be done. It looks like it cannot be done. I am 100% sure it can be done. Just that you have to understand what to keep and what to remove. That is very, because once you write it, you always feel that this is what I have owned up. So it's better that you go to somebody who can always look into from objectivity sense. So that's why I said you should have 3 to 4 good friends of yours who are also good academics, who can look into your articles and say that, okay, fine, what are things. So proofreading is very important here. That will also help in reducing the number of words. Have I answered your question now?
Yes, absolutely. So because yes, some of the journals have the policy, but most of them do include it, like they give it inclusive of the references. So
Right.
this is one challenge.
Yes. Yeah. Please go on.
There's another question, sir. Like as you said, that first thing first that we need to align our paper with the objectives of the journal. But most of the time, it so happens, I don't know for what so reasons, that the paper gets rejected, stating that it is not in not aligns with the scope of the journal. And a month down, you will find the same, the publication on a similar topic. So is it like what could be possibly the things, like, as you know, it's a common saying that you need to have some the place where the paper is coming from, or the names which are associated with the paper. So how does
Yeah,
it really
I
work at the
just
other
thought
side?
that, that if such a question comes up, how will I answer this? So I already have an answer to you. So, there are two things here. Uh, there are standard formats for rejection. Standard formats means they have the templates ready. They'll just remove the name and put your name, and that's done. So please be mindful, even if you've worked on the scope and aim and it completely aligns, and later down you will see that, yeah, articles have been published on the same domain. Please don't get disheartened, because even I believe that the publication process is 70% luck. Okay, 30% your hard work. There's nothing but what we can say about the numbers. You can always go up and down about it. Now you can always say here what you should do. With the kind of, as I said, influx of the number of articles which are happening today, it's bound to happen that there will be rejections. Okay, and they will always put in some of the statements like that. So in that case, it's important that you don't get disheartened and you focus on some other journal, because I've seen some of the C category journals, APDC C category journals write this up, and maybe after some checks and balances, you submit it to a better category journal and it gets accepted there. So please be mindful. It's nothing. It's a process which everyone has to go through. It may look like now you were talking about the names, some of the names which are associated with it. So it definitely is a shortcut, because those names are, maybe they are the authors, editors of the prestigious journals and otherwise. So they have already done the hard work in getting the names there. So once the name comes in, what is the objectivity which comes in the minds of the other editor is that they must have followed all the guidelines well. Okay, so we can be mindful that the guidelines are being followed well. So, and they will take it seriously because of the kind of work they have done before. So this is the only thing which I can provide with the type of name. Now, if you have to make your own name, in that case, it is important that your work speaks for you rather than your name speaks for you. So even if your article meets all the journal guidelines and scope, but say, for example, it does not as I said, the editor will always look into if it is citable, right? If it can improve the citation score of the journal, because everything boils down to that. So if they look into from that lens also, so if it is a seminal work and it is able to garner more and more of citations, that is what their perspective is. So they will not reject it mostly. But again, it's a number game, and there are a lot of journals outside that is also there. And once you're writing your article, please don't select just one journal for your work. Select 5 or 6 journals for your work and align your work that way. Because and you should be completely ready with the submission to the next journal rather than just getting so much dejected upon rejection, because the rejection game is way too much today to really get dejected about it. So it's for all of us that we continuously strive to work. So it's important, all if all the aspects are met right from the introduction till the conclusion, and it really is contributing something, and you are lining your work right from the very beginning till the end. As I said, put in what your contributions will be in the introduction, and the same thing should be written at the end as well, in the conclusion and the implication. Please align that. So most of the editors will look into that also. First, they look into what they write in the introduction, then they will look into what they write in the conclusion. If there is a mismatch, they'll reject it. Okay. However, the reasons will be that which is provided in that template, right? Maybe 1 or 2 lines in between. So this is how it is. I hope I've answered your question.
Okay, sir. So
Right.
perseverance says the.
Yeah, I think see, it's very objective. Sorry, very subjective. It's not objective at all. So we have to understand it that way. But I have seen, with my own experience, that the more you invest into the rigor, then you're not going to get desk rejected, at least. And once you are not desk rejected, it's always about how you answer to the reviewers' comments. Yeah. So that's that. Any other question? Okay. Okay. So now we are constantly talking about what and how should our articles be, and how should they be, that good that they are not desk rejected. Okay. So the process should not be like we have to get our articles published. The process should be, and it should start with what and how I can contribute. Okay. So so even we have archives today, wherein you can, if your article is not getting published, you can put it on the archive. If your article gets multiple citations there, and you are mentioning that information in the cover letter to the journal where you are submitting, that is also a plus point for any article. All right. So what I'm saying is that you can get citations before your article is finally published in a journal. So you can put in an archive or maybe an SSR, and you can provide your working papers. So there are repositories of institutions where you can provide your working papers. Okay, so that way it improves the citation and the chances of publication of your article as well. Because if the citations are there, that means people are believing that your work is fine. So that is one way. Okay, now for the research questions. I would quote it, 80 to 90% of the articles which are published, even in the best of the journals, have a policy wherein authors look for the research gaps. Okay, they don't problematize it, but they put on the research gaps. Now, what are the research gaps? So there can be 3 types of gap spotting, which I can say. So one is maybe confusion spotting. Confusion spotting means that you have different authors talking about different things. So one particular definition is taken up by different authors, and they have defined that particular construct in different way. Okay, so confusion spotting. You're saying that multiple authors are giving multiple definitions of the construct, and therefore we need to provide a uniform definition. This is one way of spotting the gap. The second thing is neglect spotting. Okay, now what is this neglect spotting? Maybe you say that these are overlooked areas, or these are under-researched areas, or maybe there is a lack of empirical support in this research, or maybe there is no methodological rigor in the researches that have already. So for that to happen, you'll have to look into all the articles and establish that indeed such a thing is there. Okay, so again, be very humble while you are quoting the previous researches, and then say that, okay, these are the overlooked areas, under researched areas. So this is how you're spotting the gap. The third is the application spotting. So first one was confusion, second is neglect, third is application spotting. So it means existing research is being complemented and extended through our work. We'll say that, okay, this has been done. Now we are extending the network of this construct, or we are extending the work in the construct. Okay, so maybe you can also say there is a shortage of a particular theory, and therefore you're proposing a new theory in this particular area. So this is all gap spotting, and this is very important. This should be a part of your literature as well as in the introduction. You have to sparingly provide the information here. So gap has to be spotted. Now 80 to 90% of the best of the journals, the articles that are published there, use this method, gap spotting. Okay, now you see you are talking about these things while you are doing the gap spotting. So what we are doing is we are generating research questions from the gap. So how it goes, you talk about what is, I'll again take the discussion from where I started. What is, that means historical developments in that particular area, you're talking about that. And then you say, you spot the gaps, you say that, okay, maybe there is confusion in the definition, and therefore multiple researchers have given multiple things, and I propose this. Okay, number two, by using that this is under researched. Or number three, I'll say extend the things that have already been done. So these are the three things. I provide that in the introduction, and then just after the gap spotting, I also introduce my research question. So my research question would directly adhere to my research problem. Research problem is the research gap which I have identified. This is important for any article. Okay. So now you see you have to generate research questions by identifying and constructing specific gaps. So overlooked areas, search for shortages, or maybe a different perspective. Use these gaps to formulate own research questions. This is important. Now, there are different kind of researches that we see. One that is completely devoid of any research question, rejected. That's rejected. Number two, there are research questions, but those research questions have already been dealt with by multiple researchers in the past. That means there is inconclusive evidence, or it has not been delved well. Again, it is rejected because the research has already been done. So that's not a unique research question. The third thing is when a research question is proposed and that research question has not been dealt earlier, and that is when it is taken forward. Then the reviewer or the author, editor, looks into it carefully. This is how it is. Now, the other way, so I was talking about this. The other way is problematization. This is something which is for those researchers who are confident about what they are working on. Okay, why I'm saying this? Because it's not gap spotting. It is about questioning the existing research. It's about questioning the assumptions of the existing research. So it can also be about questioning the theories of that have been come through multiple researches in the past. Why it is very bold and confident step? Because you see, you will have to provide multiple rigors to your research, because what you're doing is you're questioning the already existing assumptions. I'll just give you a very short example here. Earlier, the organizational researches were based on how an employee works in that organization. That means an employee goes to the office and works there. There is a workplace. The employee goes there and works there. Issues like politics, power, or maybe motivation, leadership, all comes from the lens of an organization which is having a physical workplace, right? But with COVID, the world saw that there can be other ways in which we can have deliberations and work done. So now all the assumptions which were specific to physical domain can be easily questioned. So it opens up multiple areas of research today that we have to understand. Okay, because you can work while you're sitting at your home, you can deliver a lecture while you're multiple miles away, and that never happened earlier. So all those dynamics change with the new developments coming in. So we can always problematize, we can always question the assumptions, and basis that we can formulate our research questions. Okay, so it's about challenging assumptions, thinking differently, and going beyond what is already known. So this is how the process, the roadmap of problematization: identify the literature domain, identify and articulate those areas which have assumptions. I'll just quickly tell you, if some of you are working in the finance domain, or even not, earlier the theory was that every investor who invests in the stock markets is a rational investor. It thinks well, rationally, with logic, right? This was the assumption. And then this assumption was questioned, wherein we said that no, the investors are not rational because they have biases. Biases can be different types: psychological, contextual, and so on and so forth. The third thing which comes in here was questioned by Taylor, and he got a Nobel Prize for it, was that even these biases are systematic, and the irrational behavior of an investor is also systematic. Okay, so you have to question on the assumptions, and this is again a very confident and bold step to move forward with problematization. So basing your research questions on these can be a two-way sword here, because if you're not very good with it, if you're not using rigorous, robust methodologies to complement your problematization, it may not go anywhere. The work may not go anywhere. I think it's very important that we test it on then different samples, make it robust, have incremental validity on that, and so on. So it's important that way. So again, we develop alternatives while we are doing problematization. We develop alternatives and say that this is how it should be done. This is the new assumption, and then we relate assumptions to audiences and then evaluate alternatives. So this is how you problematize. And these pointers, whatever I have just discussed, if you put it in your introduction or theoretical underpinnings, you will see that, and if you have done it scientifically, you will see that you have told a narrative, a story through this, and then there can be a lot of teeth in the work that you're doing. So this was about how you have research questions. Please be mindful, you have to have research questions which you will take up through the results, through your samples, methods, and you will have your results, and then you will give your discussions. One more thing which I wanted to talk about was the discussion and the finding section, as well as the implication sections. I've seen multiple articles where whatever you have proposed as your objective or your research question is not taken up at the end. Okay, something else is taken up, and you give managerial implications for some things which you have not studied in your work. Again, this is very important to understand. If you have not studied those variables, don't give recommendations on that. If you have specifically studied those things in your research work, then only provide recommendations, otherwise don't. So this will really help anybody to take it forward. Now, I'll quickly take you to how to do a proper search on Scopus about the literature, specific literature that you're looking into, and then I'll end up this session and I'll wait for the questions to come in. Is this window visible? No?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is Scopus here. If you look into, when we're doing our research, inclusion exclusion criteria, that is what we are talking about. Say, for example, I have to search in the documents. Okay. there will be multiple documents if I just search like this. Say, for example, quotes need to be provided. So I'm just using a quote here. Workplace. Say this is my research area, workplace spirituality. Okay, and I'll just search for this. Just a second. Yeah. So I get around 571 results here. But again, I'll not be able to, look into all these articles that have been published. So what I'll do, I'll have to edit my search and make it more precise. I'll say, okay, if you're using common, words which are similar to that word, okay, then you can use or. Say workplace spirituality or say spirituality at work. Okay. Say for example, you want to also have something which is like meaningfulness, right? Which is added to the research on workplace spirituality. So they're the same researches, but you want to have them all. So maybe you can use and command. Here I'm using or command. That means almost the same things, but the names are different. And here I'm using, say, a different construct for meaningfulness. Okay, and then I search it. So you see the documents number decreases to 16 documents only now. Earlier it was mostly 600 plus. What I'm trying to tell you here that if you want to study the relationship between workplace spirituality and meaningfulness, then you should search it this way. Okay, because it will help you in building your theoretical underpinnings, conceptual developments on the relationship that you're studying. Instead of just explaining workplace spirituality as a single standalone construct, you can have it coupled with other constructs as well, depending on what your research question. Say, for example, your research question is, what is the association between, say, meaningfulness and workplace spirituality? If that is your research question, it comes through this rather than, standalone search of workplace spirituality and standalone search of meaningfulness. You can also, if we are not taking meaningfulness, you can also do certain edits. Like, say, for example, just search, say, workplace spirituality and spirituality at work. You get 642 document results. You only want to see articles that have been published in, say, 22, 21, as I was saying, contemporary researches, 2018 to 2022. I've tick marked that. If you have specific authors in your mind, you can tick mark that. If you want to specify your area of research, so maybe I would want to do it for business management, accounting, maybe psychology, I'll just click on that, and social sciences. Say, for example, I don't want to review books. I just want to review journals and review articles. And even I don't want conference papers. So I'll click on this. You can also have specific journals that publish. And if you're interested in a particular journal, you can tick mark here. Publication stage, we can keep both. And say, I just want it for the journal and I want English language. So journal articles published in English language. So I just limit my search to that. And I get from 600 to 193 documents. Even after I take only one construct as a standalone construct rather than putting it through or checking the relationship between 2 or 3 constructs. Similar kind of activity can be done in Google Scholar when you're using advanced search method. All right. So I'll just stop the sharing, and if I have any questions, I can take it up. Yes.
Can I ask one thing?
Yes, please.
This combination confuses me sometimes. So for example, if I say keyword 1 and keyword 2 or keyword 3. So this or keyword 3 will show me results in combination to first two keywords or just second and third keyword. How does
I
it
think
work? Because it gives me weird results when it gives me the number of papers. I'm not able to interpret how does it
so
do.
are these keywords the same thing? If they are the same, one and the same thing, then you use or if not, you use and.
Uh, can you please repeat? Sorry.
I'll
If
repeat.
they,
Say, for example, workplace spirituality and spirituality of work are the same thing, right?
right.
But I can, as an author, write both meaning the same thing: workplace spirituality and spirituality at work. Somebody else can also write spirit at work, right? And I have to know that all the three things are just the different names of a construct. So I'll use or there, or.
Okay.
But if I want to see different relationships of workplace spirituality with meaningfulness, as I was just talking about, you use and, A and D.
So for example, sorry, I'm cutting you out. So for example, my area which I'm looking into is, let's say, regional trade agreements or free trade agreements, which can be put up in different ways: trade agreements, free trade agreements, regional trade agreements. So I give or for that.
Right.
And then specifically, I'm saying India and Australia. So first keyword should be India and Australia and all these ors, or how do I do that? Or first all these three ors and then and India and Australia.
I think let's do it, right? I mean, let's not get confused. Let's just do it. I mean, whatever you're saying, we'll be able to. Just a second. Yeah. So you are saying free trade agreement, right?
Right. Free trade agreement.
Free trade agreement. So anything which is similar to that free trade agreement, FTA maybe is used, but I don't want to.
RTA.
Yeah, it can be for many abbreviations. So not anything else that you want to put in with free trade agreement, which is very similar to this.
Free trade, only not using the word agreement there, but free trade.
Free trade. Yeah. So maybe let's just take till this.
These
and
two, yeah.
We're also talking about, say, India.
Right.
So use India here and use this double quotes because only India will come. And what we are looking at is the article title, abstract and keywords. You have absolute choice to also take anything else, all the fields you want. That means if these words come up anywhere in the article, it will come up that way. If you want it specifically in the keywords, you can put it that way, and so on and so forth. Okay, so if these are the two words, and now Scopus listed publications for free trade agreement or free trade that is provided in the abstract title or keywords, and also it has India in the abstract title and keywords will be shown. Okay, so if you search it, you get somewhere around 603 documents. Now, if you look into it carefully, maybe if you don't get it here, so you will get it somewhere in the abstract or the keywords. Okay, both the things will come. India will come as well as free trade agreement will come up. I think the way you put in the information is important to get good results. That have I answered your question?
If I add another country to this, if I say Australia,
Yeah, we
so
can do that.
so basically it will look into, or okay.
Yeah, so just let's do it. We also want, say, Australia here, right?
So now will it look for both the countries in article and abstract, or
Yeah, because it's and, right?
And.
That means both the countries, if it is provided in the title, abstract or keyword, then it will show only those countries, those articles. That means it should have free trade agreement, it should have India and Australia shown as a research result. So let's see. So it really comes down to 49 only. Okay, so you see Australia and India, and maybe you will get others in your abstract and keywords, right?
Thank you.
Great.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Hello, sir. Thank you for your session. So I am a person from the field of law, and of late I have been thinking of developing an interdisciplinary paper. So I wanted to know that what is the possible scope? I mean, we are moving towards more multidisciplinary researches. And
I'm not
papers
getting your voice absolutely clearly. So can you be a little louder, please?
Yeah, I. So am I audible now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I wanted to know the scope of interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research papers.
Okay.
So for example, my master's in law, I'm a person from the law discipline. So my master's is in international trade and economic law, and I have done a PhD thesis including gender dynamics, basically gender relations and their change in nature, with a socio-legal perspective.
Right.
So I just wanted to know that what kind of a scope I can create in these two fields, and would that be likable for the editorials and for the public? That's
Okay.
my question.
Yeah, understood the question. So nowadays, I'll tell you, it's a good news for all of us that a lot of interdisciplinary research is being encouraged, and it can be done absolutely. So what you can see, I'll just give you a short example, and then you can explore it your way. Earlier, say management researches were done through, say, surveys or experiments, and these were the methods. Now they are drawing in substance from AI, deep learning, machine learning, and any other things which are associated with IT and computers more, right? Artificial intelligence is also taken into consideration. So you will see how do you achieve that with the aid of other disciplines. So maybe if you would want to combine law with the things that you have done, say for example, gender, you said, right? Or any other thing which you want to just see the researches that have already been done with the keyword search, which I just showed to you right now. Okay, this is one way. The other way is to look out for special issues in some of the journals of your interest. Say, for example, you're looking for law journals, or you're looking for any other journal which you're interested in, and see what are the special issues that they are providing or bringing up. Okay, and then maybe you can see. And I have absolutely no qualms in saying that you can do anything as long as you're able to, have meaningful research questions that way. So I think whatever you are saying, maybe we can take it offline as well, and I can help you in seeing some of the articles which can be associated that way. But there is no point which says that you cannot do it. In fact, that is recommended and appreciated these days. Yeah. I think we have lost her, right? Can't see her, right?
Yeah, I think we lost.
Okay. Is there any question we can take?
I'm so sorry, my connection is weak, but I was able to hear because I'm just sitting next to Isha ma'am behind her.
Great.
So I did hear your response, sir. Thank you. But
If you have any following question, you can ask. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted you to repeat a little bit towards the end what you said. I just skipped the last bit. I'm sorry.
Okay, so what I was saying is you can use, keyword searches for this, number one. Number two, what you will do is look into the special issues of journals. Okay, and these special issues of journals of your interest, your area. Okay, that will tell you that if you are able to, or you can just search special issues with your keywords. That's it. And you will find that there is always a linkage. Because as I said, the literature is always happening. Whatever you think is happening will happen or has happened before. So just try it out, and if not, we can always connect offline, and we'll see if I can suggest you something better on that. Right.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
you have any other questions from this section?
Okay, I think we have questions. So let me just quickly summarize the final part. So what are the things that needs to be done? Absolutely, do a thorough literature review. That means look into for the articles that you absolutely want in your article to be featured and put it there. So thorough literature review through keyword searches. It's the best way you can do it, because otherwise you get a lot of information and you will not be able to cluster or synthesize those information. Second part is spot the problem or spot the gap or problematize. There are multiple ways of doing it. Maybe I can share with you some of the research articles which talk about specifically about how to spot the gap and how to problematize. This can be good for those new researchers who are into this field. And the third part is always having research questions to address those gaps. And please be mindful that these are the things that are being looked up when you're sending up your article to any of the journals. So all these things should be succinctly put in your research paper. The fourth part is obviously collaborate with peers, because you may not be good in almost everything that you do. Some of them can be good in theory development. Some of you can be very good in your own data methodology or maybe analysis part. So collaborating is great because we end up learning so much more. Use reference management tools. I'm sure you have a session and you will be benefited there. One thing which I always tell everyone is while you're writing, you always follow a narrative. Tell a compelling story that nobody can say a no to. So that story should be linked and it should be very entertaining. That means it's not like you don't write for an audience. We always try to write for an audience who knows about it. But even if we try writing for somebody who is a layman, and I'm sure this is something which will happen in the next 5-10 years, they will tell you to write it in even simpler languages, in simple sentence construction, so on and so forth, so that everybody understands it, because then the audience reach will be more. And always employ publication ethics at all stages. So that's that. If I have already taken up questions, thank you.
So that's
yeah, any other question I am also able to take up. We have some time, but if not, then it's okay.
I don't have a question, but I didn't want to discuss this, that like you said, that obviously it's not an ethical practice to submit your papers in 2-3 different journals, and all obviously it can be conflicting at times also. For example, my past paper that I had submitted, after 4 rejections, it finally got accepted. But that paper was in FDI, India, and COVID. These were the three things that it was looking into.
Yeah.
And after 6 months or 8 months, because it was looking into the government policies that have been introduced, specifically taking advantage of this thing that had happened. Now 6 months move by, and the paper becomes redundant. A year goes by, I know it will not be accepted anywhere.
Right.
So I believe this is a problem which others also face, because nowadays policies are changing so often, things are changing so often. What we write becomes redundant very soon. So is there any tip or anything with regards to that? Because obviously I know I should not be submitting it at n number of different places.
Yeah, if something is that current and contemporary, please put it over on the archives, open repositories. Please do that, because see, you will get citations for that. No journal today is saying that you cannot put it on open repositories or institutional repositories. You can definitely do that. Just write them in the cover letter that you have uploaded it as a working paper series somewhere. So your work remains your work. Citations, why do we actually do this research? Because it has to reach out to multiple number of people. and I can understand this problem, because yes, some of the surveys don't really get redundant, but some of the current work do get redundant. So it's important that we communicate whatever has been researched. So I think this is the best way out, that you keep on submitting to the journals. Also, one more thing here, which is important, is whenever you're submitting your article to a journal, after a while, and you feel that it has become already redundant, rather than just saying that, rather than just taking that paper again and again, why not make some longitudinal comparisons between then and now? I'm sure it will increase your effort, but I think
It's like writing a new paper all over again.
yeah, I understand, but I think that this is the only way out, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, I get it. Yes.
otherwise, there's nothing else you can do about it. So put it on the repository. I think that's the best way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
So, questions as such are a lot of homework for us all to do. So, our work actually starts here. So, thank you so much for accepting our request at such a short notice and sharing all your valuable insights with us. So, indeed, it's been an eye-opening session since day one itself. So, a lot to reflect and redo. So doing things in a better systematic and a planned way is what the essential key takeaway from the session is. So I extend very heartfelt thanks on behalf of the research cell and QAC and the entire DME to be with us, and hopefully we'll be able to meet you soon in person and have a physical session wherein we can have more related discussions around the various nuances of research and academic life. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Isha. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jan. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
for the participants for listening. Thank you so much.
The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.